When you think about the past, that's your ego. When you think about the future, that's your pride. When you think about the present, that's humility. Giannis Antetokounmpo, DZ Tribe, Josh Thomas. I'm so glad you're here today. I want to talk about perseverance. A mile a day to 10K. This is not my story, although I do have something to do with it. It is partially involves me. But it's about my friend Chris. Chris and I have known each other for the better part of 20 years. He is one of my closest confidants and one of my best friends. We don't talk a whole lot, but we don't really need to. We kind of silently understand each other for the most part. And when we're running into something a little too difficult to handle or manage, we kind of confide in each other and say, hey, look, I need some perspective on this. Give me some guidance. So Chris and I are kind of close from a distance, if you will. And one of the things that we tend to do is we tend to share ideas and concepts and revelations that we have with each other. And at the beginning of this year, Chris made a promise to himself that, I'm kind of getting fat, I'm kind of lazy, and my life's not going the way that I want it to. And so I want to find something that I can be in control of. And his decision was, I'm going to run a mile a day. And he decided to do that. On January 1st, he ran a mile, and it was horrific. And he's not really a runner. He had done that in the past a little bit, but he was pretty out of shape. And not super, chubby or anything, but, running's not that easy. It's not that hard, but it's not that easy. And so he said, you know what? I'm going to run a mile a day. I'm going to run a mile today. And he did that. And then he committed himself to running a mile the next day and the next day. And fortunately, we live in Texas, so it's not always super cold, but it does get occasionally cold. And we did actually have a freeze and some ice on the roads and those sorts of things at one point. And he still got out and he ran his mile. And he bundled up. I don't know how he did that, but he managed to figure it out. And so he started telling me that. And then he started showing me the results. He's like, yeah, man, I dropped some weight. I'm feeling better. I've got higher energy levels and those sorts of things. And I'm like, you know what? That's inspiring, man. I think I'm going to try that. I want to run a mile a day. And his goal was, he doesn't have an end in sight. He didn't have a major goal that he was shooting for or anything like that. He just wanted to get out there and run a mile the next day. That was the only plan. And I knew that this wasn't something that I wanted to do every day, but it is something that I wanted to give a shot to see what kind of effects it would have. And if I'm going to do something, I'm going to give it a good 30 days, at least, to see what happens. And so that's what I did. Because of my friend Chris, I was inspired to get out and run a mile a day also. And so I went out and I ran a mile a day. The first one was horrific. It was god awful. I think my I think it was like 15 minutes or something. And for those of you that are runners, you're probably laughing like, dude, that's a walk. It was really bad. And the next one was slightly better. The next one was slightly better. And I pushed and I pushed and I pushed and I got it under 10 minutes. And then at one point I got it under 9 minutes. It was like 8:58 or something like that. I was pretty proud of that. And I think my max, I'd have to go and check the Strava app on this, but I think my max was like 7:58 one time, and it was just like I was trucking it as fast as my tiny frame can go. I'm not like a super short dude, but my legs are like cartoonishly tiny. It's like, why is my torso so long? I don't understand. But anyway, so it was fascinating to me because it gave me something to shoot for. It gave me something to plan for. It gave me something to set aside for. And even that 15-minute run, even at my worst, it only took me 15 minutes out of my day. It only took 15 minutes out of my day. Anybody can spend 15 minutes doing something that's going to positively affect your health. And so by the end of that 30 days, I actually was moving. I had bought a house. And so one of those days I had to pack up and move all of my furniture and all of these things. And that took the entire day. And I got everything out of the truck. I got everything into the house. And it was 12:30 a.m. And I was exhausted from a bunch of heavy lifting and moving and all of those things. 12:30 in the morning, I hadn't run yet. Shit. Okay, well, I'm going to get out and run. And my knees were screaming at me. They were like, no, dude, just go to bed. It hurts. I don't want to be up anymore. Because, I mean, you know, you're lifting couches and beds and tables and desks and chairs, and you're taking like a million trips. And I had burned like 4,500 calories already that day. And like, no, you know, I got to stick with this. So I got out in my new neighborhood, 12:30 in the morning, and I ran a mile after moving all day. And I'll tell you, that mile sucked. It was like day 28, by the way. I had 3 more days to finish out. And it was the worst, most inconvenient thing for me to be doing, was to be finishing this run while I'm moving a bunch of heavy furniture. So I did it, and I finished it, and it was bad. It was like 12, 13 minutes, where I had been under 10 for a while, and this one was like bad. But hey, I got it done. I was making the motions and doing the movements of running, and I got it done. And then I collapsed in bed. Actually, my bed wasn't even set up, so I collapsed on the floor that night. I was like living it up hobo style in my new house. Next day, I woke up and I was feeling a little sick, actually. My throat was hurting. I ended up with a fever, you know, all kinds of things. And with a fever, I had to get out on day 29 and run. So I did that. And then I felt even worse on day 30. And then it got cold. So it was like, I mean, cold for Texas. So it was like 38 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit at night when I was getting out to run. And I was sick and I had a fever. But it was day 30. And so, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to finish day 30. And I finished it. And I was so proud of myself for finishing that. And then day 31, I did not run. But Chris kept running. For Chris, it was like day 60-something, 50-something. And he kept going. And by then, Chris said, you know what? I think I'm going to sign up for the Cap City 10K. We're in Austin. Austin's the capital of Texas. And every year, they have a huge 10K race that goes through downtown called the Cap City 10K. I'm going to sign up for the Cap City 10K. Whoa. That's serious. And you know, obviously there's a training regime and those sorts of things, because that's 6.2 miles, 10 kilometers. So that's much different than running a mile a day. And so then he started figuring out, okay, well, how do I expand the amount of distance that I'm covering when I'm running? How do I put together a training regimen? And he said, you know what? I didn't really worry about that too much. I didn't really follow too many plans. I just made sure to get out there and run every single day. And he had a goal. We finished it recently. I went and supported him. Saw him cross the finish line. And I was super happy because I saw everything that he put in to finish this race. And there are some beasts that sign up for 10Ks. The number one finisher, 6.2 miles, 10 kilometers, the number one finisher of this race ran across the finish line in 26 minutes. And I'm just thinking, wow. You know, I can't even run a 5K in 26 minutes. This dude must have been flying. So we got there to support him. The race started at 8. He was in a heat that started at like 8:10, 8:20, something like that. And we already saw people crossing the finish line around 8:40. So all these people were under an hour for the 10K. And Chris had set a goal. I want to run it in under an hour. If I can get it under an hour, you know, that's a real good goal to hit. And so Chris eventually crosses the finish line. He was in 300th place which is pretty dang good because there are thousands and thousands of people. And then obviously like the super beasts that are running in under an hour. And his time was 62 minutes. So he just missed his goal. But the sweet thing about it, the thing that really brings this all together, and that he didn't plan, and maybe it doesn't mean anything, but the 10K took place on his 100th day of running. 100 days of running got him to finish a 10K. 100 days of running a mile a day allowed him to be competitive and complete a 10K. I think that's just an amazing, inspirational story. And there was a lot of lessons that I was able to pull from that. And I hear his voice every time when I asked him a few times, like, well, are you going to do anything with that? You have an end goal in mind? You know, why are you doing this? And his answer was very simple. You know, I'm not thinking about any of that. All I'm thinking about is today, I'm going to run a mile. And there's something to say about the simplicity of just getting out and doing the thing. What are you going to do today? I'm going to get out and I'm going to do the one thing that's going to help me. And it's only going to take me a few minutes. But if I set aside the time and I do this every day and I dedicate myself to it, then I can accomplish anything I want, even a 10K. So I want you to really think about, what is that thing for you? Maybe it's running, maybe it's not. That's not the point. I told the story because there's a lesson behind it, one that I learned and I want to share with you. Just the simplicity of Chris's words. I don't care what the goal is. It doesn't matter what result it produces. It doesn't matter how fast I go. It doesn't matter where I run. The only thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to run a mile today, and that's what I'm going to do. And he's still running a mile a day. He finished the race. I asked him after the race, I was like, hey, so you still going to run your mile? And he said, no, I think I already finished it for today. And there's not necessarily an end in mind. Maybe he'll run every day this year. Maybe he'll do 6 months. Maybe he'll stop at some arbitrary time and say, you know what, like Forrest Gump, you know, like, I don't feel like running anymore. Maybe he'll be like that, and that's fine too. But the point is, you got to be consistent. You got to get out. You got to do something. Thanks for listening to that. I really was excited to share that story with somebody. For those of you that are listening, we're going to wrap up for today. And if you do have a topic that you'd like me to discuss on a future episode, you can find me on Facebook, or you can look me up on Instagram at JoshThomas80. Until next time, hey, go get something done.